I will go ahead and call to order this regular meeting of the Board of Public Works. This is Tuesday, August 18th of 2020. First up on the agenda, we have messages from board members. Do we have any messages from board members this evening?
No, not tonight. Okay.
Next up, we have petitions and remonstrances. If we have anyone who is here to make a public comment on something that is not on the agenda, now is the opportunity to do so. So any public comment on something not on our agenda this evening.
If you have any public comment, please use the raise your hand function on Zoom or put a message in the chat. I don't see anything here, Kyla.
All right, thanks. Next on the agenda is a hearing on a noise appeal of noise citation number 41852 at 3425 North Stoney Crest Road.
Good evening. This is Chris Wheeler with the City of Bloomington's legal department, and I will defer to the appellant for him to state his case before the city responds, please.
All right. Thank you for your time. Not to state the obvious, but just because a neighbor calls in a noise complaint doesn't mean it is just. I'm challenging the police officer's determination that any unreasonable or excessive noise could be heard from outside the premises at the time the ticket was issued. Section 930C4 states that sound that is clearly audible to a person with normal hearing from any place other than the premises from which the source of the sound is located. So the question is really if did the police officer really walk around the perimeter to ascertain the level of noise, or did an officer simply answer a noise complaint, walk straight up to the door and maybe get frustrated after ringing the doorbell a bunch of times and leave a ticket at the screen. As far as the ordinance is concerned, while the adjectives used to determine a violation are subjective at best, we know that sound is something that can be measured, much like miles per hour for a car, to determine how fast a car is barreling down the road. You can only imagine driving down the street with no speed limits and having an officer pull you over just for unreasonably fast driving or excessively fast driving. So a decibel reader in the documentation I provided shows readings of about 30 to 40 decibels, which in the audio world is whisper level. This was taken at the property line closest to the adjacent neighbors. The property is 70 feet wide in the front and 202 feet deep in the back. So it's about the size of a soccer field. I feel like reasonable neighbors would maybe have contacted me to try to resolve the issue before involving the law. And honestly, if anybody's going to hear music on the property, they would have to have been trespassing or underneath my porch or sleeping next to the window. So they're not exhibiting ordinary sensitivities to sound. Regardless, since this occurrence, I've taken extensive measures regarding the noise on the property and have reached out to the neighbors to resolve the issue. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
Yeah, good evening again. This is Chris Wheeler, City Legal, here to represent the police department's citation as issued. Tori Wallace is an officer with the Bloomington Police Department, and he's present with us this evening, and I'd like to ask him a few questions if it would please the board.
Go ahead.
If we could have Mr. Wallace unmuted. I don't know if he can do that. There we go. Good evening, Mr. Wallace.
Evening.
Could you please tell the board your full name?
It's Torrey David Wallace.
And where are you fully employed?
The Bloomington Police Department.
How long have you been with the Bloomington Police Department?
About a year and 10 months.
In early August, August 2nd of this year, did you have an occasion to visit the property at 3425 North Stoney Crest Road?
Yes.
And approximately what time of the evening or day was it that you arrived to visit this property?
It would have been a later evening. I don't remember the exact time off the top of my head, but I believe it was probably somewhere around 11:30 or so.
11:30 p.m.
Yeah, I believe it was somewhere in there.
And what was the reason for your going to this property?
It was referenced a noise complaint of music coming from the 3425.
And I believe in your officer's narrative, you said as you were approaching the property, you recognized it. Is that right?
As far as recognizing where the music was coming from?
Recognized that address, 3425
Oh, yes,
North.
yes.
And why is it that you recognized that address?
Due to several calls in the last couple of weeks before that of the same complaint from that address.
That you had responded to, correct?
Correct.
All right. In those other responses to noise complaints, did you walk past the property and determine whether any noise was coming from the property?
Yes.
And in those instances, did you hear any noise coming from the property?
I believe I went there once and I actually spoke with Mr. Dorotheo about the noise coming from the property. I went there, I believe, 2 other occasions, and I have walked past the property and found that it was not a valid noise complaint at that time.
Didn't hear any noise, right?
Right.
On August 2nd, 2020, at about 11:30 in the evening, what did you hear or observe as you were approaching the property?
As I was approaching the property, I exited my vehicle, was walking up on the sidewalk, and I was able to hear music coming from the residence. I walked past the residence to determine that it was exactly coming from there, and I was able to hear that from the sidewalk.
All right, so you're on the sidewalk when you can hear the music.
Yes.
And were you using any kind of a special hearing device or hearing aids or anything at that time to hear the music?
No.
Just using your regular auditory abilities from your own ears, correct?
Correct.
Having heard noise and walked past the property and determined that the noise was coming from this property, what next did you do?
I attempted to make contact at the front door with whoever the homeowner may be.
Walked up to the property, knocked on the door. Did anybody come to the door?
No.
So you left a ticket at the property and left, correct?
Correct.
After that, then, I believe the next day, did you take any steps to try and determine who actually was living at the property?
Yes, I went back to the residence.
And did you speak with anybody?
Nope, no answer.
Did you ever make contact with Richard Dorothea's father?
Yes.
And what did you learn from Mr. Dorothea?
That he
Ricardo Dorothea.
That he owns the property on Stoney Crest, and that his son lived at the property.
All right. I don't have any other questions for you, Mr. Wallace. Officer Wallace, thank you very much.
Thank you.
If I could give a brief summation then to the board. So when you're looking at the code that Mr. Dorothea cited, he's citing the correct section. It's 14.09.030 subsection C4, but he doesn't read the whole section that's important here. Yes, if sound is clearly audible to a person with normal hearing from any place other than the premises from which the source of the sound is located, when the sound occurs between the hours of 9 p.m. and 7 a.m., that is prima facie evidence of a violation of this section. What that means is if you can hear the sound, that's a violation if you're hearing it from off property. It doesn't matter how loud it is at that point, just that you can hear it from off property from somebody with ordinary hearing abilities. Officer Wallace was off property. He wasn't using any extra audible equipment to hear the sound, just his own hearing, and he could hear it. He's been to the property before and hasn't heard any noise coming from the property and didn't do anything about it because rightfully so, there was no violation. But in this particular situation, he did hear music coming from the property and then properly issued a citation to the resident of the property, Richard Dorothea. Staff is recommending that the board deny this appeal and uphold the ticket. Thank you.
If she was going to be involved in this meeting, she would have been here. She do about it. Right.
Thank you. Questions from the board on this item?
I have a question. He has not received a citation before. This is the first citation he has received on complaints.
To my knowledge, this is the first citation that's actually been issued for Mr. Dorotheo.
All right, thank you.
Was there a warning issued in the first conversation that was mentioned in the chronology of the various visits?
No.
I spoke with, I believe, with Mr. Dorotheo the first time, and just as normal told him, you know, hey, your neighbors have complained about the music. If you don't care to keep it down for me, I'd appreciate it. He agreed to do so.
And there was no music being played at that time, right?
There was. That's why I made contact at the front door.
There was none.
Other questions from the board?
No.
No.
One question I have just generally that this brought to my mind is when we have a noise ordinance violation citation, are those items, I know it was posted on the door, but are those items that we would simply handle by mail in some cases, or are they required to be delivered in person no matter what the circumstances?
It can be left at the residence.
Okay, so that's
And the
only
appeal
method.
was, yeah.
That's the only method.
The appeal was, yeah, go ahead.
I just was clarifying that that's the only method of delivery.
Yeah. And they did appeal it timely, so they did receive the NOV.
Yes, we got the appeal. Yes, Beth, that is true.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
All right, any other board questions? Is there a motion on this item?
I move that we deny the appeal and uphold the ticket.
I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next is, let's see, we have no Title VI enforcement, so we're moving on to the consent agenda. Under the consent agenda, we have the approval of minutes for August 4th of 2020. We have resolution 2020-38, approved mobile vendor renewal in public right-of-way for Top Shotta Jerk Chicken LLC. Resolution 2020-43, approved donation and recycling surplus from ITS. Approved property exchange with IU trustees. Resolution 2020-40, approved declaration of surplus fleet vehicle. Approved service agreement with Bounds Flooring for maintenance and repair of flooring and carpeting at City Hall facilities. Approved service agreement with Commercial Service, Inc. for maintenance and repair of HVAC and plumbing at City Hall facilities, and approval of payroll. Do we have any items that need to be removed from the consent agenda this evening? Okay, hearing none. Is there any public comment on any of the items within the consent agenda? All right, seeing none. Is there a motion on the consent agenda?
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Or second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Next, under new business, we have Resolution 2020-37, approve order to remove structure at 1209 West 11th Street.
Yeah, hi, this is Daniel Dixon with the legal department. My understanding is that there is, I think, some individuals who'd like to speak. I think an attorney present who want to discuss this particular item, and I would defer to them before the city inside.
Okay, just ask a question really quick.
All right, this is Adam Wason here, Public Works Director. Mr. Dixon from the city just asked, Mr. Mans, are you here to speak to the matter of West 11th Street?
Yes, I am.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and then the 312-288 number, you're here to speak to that as well?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Great, thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Mans.
Well, I just wanted to inform the board that the property, the owner of the property, Mr. Mobley, Thomas Mobley, passed in May of 2020. He has a surviving wife, spouse, who we petitioned the court this week to establish her as the personal representative of the estate, but the court has not ruled on that motion, on that petition yet. But there are also, he has 4 children, adult children, who are the heirs, who are deceased. They are the intestate heirs. Mr. Mobley, he's without a will, and they are Thomas E. Mosley Jr., an adult, Frederick Mobley, an adult son, Charles Hayes Mobley, and Crystal Mobley, a daughter. They're all adults. We have to determine, there seems to be some question about whether there's some liens on the estate, whether the property is really actually a part of the estate, because there was some years ago a foreclosure on the estate. I haven't finished the research. There's been a foreclosure on their property by a bank, and there was a tax deed issued to the property. So we don't know exactly who is the owner, or whether the property is part of the estate. I guess I'm trying to, I have to have the court make that determination. Nevertheless, we asked the board to hold off on a determination that is tearing down the property shack. It is in pretty bad shape, but we would like to hold off on a motion for that to give us enough time to establish to the board who is the true owner and what their positions might be on the cost of it and dealing with those kinds of matters. So I just want to update the board on those particular matters regarding the estate of Mr. Mobley. I don't know if his spouse may be on here. Catherine, are you listening?
No. Yes, she is. Dumb bitch.
There are apparently some other members of maybe Mr. Mobley's children, adult children. Are they 312288?
Yes.
Okay, good. So they're aware. I think they need to be aware of the fact that of the resolution that has been offered or been tendered, and that what we're trying to do is to resolve the issues that may come up, and we ask the court to hold off on passing the resolution to demolish the property until we're able to straighten some things out with the court. And for example, we also have some creditors who may have a stake in it as well in the property. So we need to get notification out to those persons as well.
Mr. Mans, if I can.
I didn't hear that.
All right, go ahead. Sorry, Daniel.
That's all right. Mr. Mans, I was going to ask, in the action you have pending, who are you representing currently?
Pardon?
No, we're not.
In your court case, who do you represent?
I'm representing Ms. Catherine Mobley. She's the surviving spouse.
When was that filed?
Let me see the date here. It just recently, I think last Friday. Let me get a date on it for you. Yeah, it's filed August the 8th, 17th. August the 17th. No. Actually, it filed sooner than that. That's the date I entered my appearance. It was filed on the 14th, but because I didn't have a cause number at that time, I couldn't file my appearance until the 17th. You have to wait until the court gives you a cause number. But the court has not ruled on the motion to have her appointed as a personal representative yet. So that's pending before the court. I think the court will issue an order granted or deny it sometime this week, more likely. But she has to post a bond in order to act as a representative of the estate.
Is your client's position going to be opposing a removal of the structure, or are you just trying to determine ownership?
Well, we have to determine who. Well, the record would show, I think the court records at the recorder's office would show that the heirs are the intestate owners of the property. The records would show that. But Ms. Mobley, as the surviving spouse, has an interest in the property because if it's a part of the estate, she should have not only the survivor's or spouse allowance, but she also has a 25% interest in the estate, minus any liens on the property. So we have to sort those kinds of things out, as well as the interests of the intestate heirs of his previous marriages, as well as the creditors who may have a claim against the estate. And then there's like, I haven't been able to sort out whether the foreclosure action is still in effect, or was it somehow abandoned, the property was abandoned, and then it was subject to a serve sale, and then whether the serve sale was transferred to someone else, and whom I do not know, and whether or not the person who bought the property on the serve sale exercised their right. So we have to be notified them as well of these proceedings in the estate court, probate court. Now she has moved out, so no one in this thing is living there, and they've locked the place up. At least that's what I instructed her to do.
I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
I'm talking on behalf of Charles Mobley. He filed on the deed to the house. When we called and checked on it, there was only Ruth Mobley and Thomas Mobley on the deed. And he put the deed in all four children's names. And we have a copy of that deed that we can provide for you guys. There was no other thing on there, or no other name on there. Originally, it was supposed to go to Crystal Mobley when it was a long time ago, when she was born. It was told to all family that she was to get the property, and we've heard that Catherine Mobley has tried to sell it several times, and we got it court reported that it's in all four of the names. And what we want to do is make the neighborhood safe, because that house is very bad. We have a condemn order from the courts, as well as a eviction that we're taking Miss Kathy Mobley to court on the 20th at 1 o'clock in order to proceed and get this house tore down, so that Crystal, we can make up a trust fund for Crystal Mobley, with Rosemary Leroy as her, the trustee, you know, the one on the trustee with her, the trust with her.
Okay. I just want to interject in a second here just to say that, you know, we're not really here determining tonight the ownership of the property. That's a separate court action. Really tonight, the only issue to evaluate is whether the board at this point is going to approve the resolution, the existing order to remove, and or whether it will modify it or whatever. But that is really, I think, the only thing for consideration right now. You know, we're not here to litigate ownership. That responsibility to be assessed through a different court action.
But as soon as Mrs. Mobley gets out of there, we will be, the house will be got down or tore down. We were all ready to go. And it will be according with hands orders. Everything will be, you know, took with their, or did with their orders. We're the ones that actually let them in to actually see the house and contacted them. And on our paper, we had till October 1st to get it, but it took us a while to get a court hearing, which is the 20th via Zoom.
Okay.
Thank you.
If I could, this Adam Wason again, Public Works Director. Mr. Dixon, are you comfortable if we do a table of this or for 2 weeks from tonight, see if anything gets cleared up by then? I know I would ask as on behalf of hand staff, I took a look at the property today. There are a few windows that need further boarding up, the basement window. So maybe if we could get some type of commitment to that, are you comfortable for waiting 2 weeks?
Oh, yeah.
I'm comfortable.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Let me second. I think I'm okay with 2 weeks. I don't know that, you know, like I said before, I don't know that determining ownership necessarily changes anything as to the order to remove, but it would potentially change who has the obligation if there is some kind of change. But it sounds like that's being litigated outside otherwise. So I would really go to the board's discussion on that unless there's a strong feeling one way or the other.
Okay. Mike Arnold, do we have you?
Yes, I'm here.
What are your thoughts, Mike? Are you okay with 2 weeks to try to?
Yeah, we would not have a problem with that. We would like to make sure that the property remains sealed during all of the court issues, though.
Okay. All right. So I think at this point, we'd entertain a motion of the board to table this until our next meeting.
Okay, should should Charles Mobley be the...
I ask that Mr. Mobley, if you have a copy.
It's 6 o'clock.
I'm sorry. If you have a copy of that deed, I would appreciate you providing me with a copy because it helped me and make my work easier to determine who the true owner of the property. It would help me because I have not seen that deed. If you have it, please give it to me. A copy.
I do have a deed. I do have the copy.
Okay, good. That would help us a little bit along. Okay.
There's the deed.
No, just if you would, just bring it to my office or give me a copy or mail a copy to me.
And your attorney who?
Yes, ma'am.
What's your name?
My name is Alfonso Mann.
Okay.
All right, at this time, we are going to move forward. Is there a motion from the board on this item?
I'll make a
I
motion.
move that we, okay, go ahead.
Sure. We'll table the resolution 2020-37 until our next meeting in 2 weeks.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Kyla?
Yes.
Kyla, do we need to have an order to seal? It sounds like they want the property sealed from hand.
Yes.
Yes, we would like to be able to go up and seal the house.
Yes, please.
I will be honored to do that.
Great, thank you.
So just to be clear, you would like me to do an orders to seal for less than 90 days on this property?
Yes.
Yes.
And we will go up there and seal the property.
Okay. Mike, why don't we just make sure we inspect this week and throughout the next several days and see that we get this it sealed, and then we may need to be prepared at the next board meeting with an order to seal.
Very good.
May I make a comment, sir? May I make a comment? May I make a comment?
Yes.
I have no problem with the sealing, Mr. Chairman or Madam Chairman. We have no problem.
Go ahead.
We have no problem with sealing of the property. I've instructed my client to lock things down so that nothing would be stolen or removed, because the personal property in the house, and no questionably, belongs to her, at least by the laws of intestate. Nevertheless, if the place is locked down, we don't want nobody to go inside the residence because it's unsafe. First of all, I've instructed her to remove herself and items from the place. So it should be, if you're preventing her from leaving, taking her things out of there, that create a problem. So, but I'm saying is that she is supposed to, I had instructed her to lock the place down so that nobody would make any entry into the facility.
Yeah, this is Mike Arnold again.
Yes, sir.
So orders to seal would just mean that you keep the openings, the doors, the windows, accesses to the crawl space sealed in such a manner that unauthorized persons cannot get into the property. It's not meant to be something that prevents the owner or the resident or the person who has property inside there from gaining access.
Okay. But in other words, she's able to have access to get her things out. Then that's okay. That's all.
That's correct.
Because she was living there. Okay. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
We will leave the door alone, and we will board up every other place on there, on the house.
All right. Thank you. Next on our agenda, we have approved preliminary engineering contract with Bledsoe, Rigor, Cooper, James for the Smith Road at Moores Pike and the South Walnut Sidewalk projects.
Good evening, Neil Copper, Planning and Transportation. So this contract includes design services for 2 sidewalk projects that were prioritized by the Council Sidewalk Committee. The projects install curb ramps and mark crosswalks at the intersection of Smith Road and Moores Pike. They also install sidewalk along the east side of South Walnut from Winslow to Ridgeview. Bledsoe, Rigor, Cooper, James was selected from the city's pre-approved consultant list based on their qualifications. The compensation for these services is set at a not to exceed amount of $53,120, and staff recommends approval of this contract.
Thank you. Questions from the board on this item?
No, I don't have any questions.
All right. Any public comment on this item? Hearing none. Is there a motion on this item?
I move that we approve the preliminary engineering contract with Bledsoe, Rigor, Cooper, James for the Smith Road at Moores Pike and South Walnut sidewalk projects.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Next is approved construction inspection contract with Strand Associates, Inc. for crosswalk improvements project.
Neil Copper again. This is a project that improves crosswalks at numerous locations throughout the city. The board has seen this project a few times now. It is funded, federally funded through the Metropolitan Planning Organization for both construction and construction engineering. We do expect construction to begin in 2021. Strand & Associates was selected from 7 engineering firms that responded to a request for information to perform the construction inspection for this project. That is required on all federally funded projects. The total contract amount for these services is set at a not to exceed amount of $52,500, and staff recommends approval of this item.
Thank you. Questions from the board on this item?
I have no questions.
All right. Any public comment on this item? Okay, seeing none, is there a motion on this item?
I move that we approve construction inspection contract with Strand Associates, Inc. for crosswalk improvements project.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Next up, we have approve use of right-of-way at 1800 North Walnut by Bloomington, Indiana Properties, LLC, also known as Collegiate Development Group.
Oh, this is Paul Kerberg from Planning and Transportation. Bloomington, Indiana Properties, LLC, formerly Collegiate Development Group, is requesting to close the sidewalk and bike lane, which is adjacent to 1800 North Walnut Street. The closure is part of their development project, and work within the right-of-way includes relocating the water line and replacing the curbs and sidewalks. They will also be utilizing and improving the existing crosswalk to the south, and will also construct a new crosswalk to the north of their property. And they have an agreement with Parks to construct a new sidewalk on the property on the west side of North Walnut Street that will provide the walkway to get around the construction. The travel lanes for vehicles will be separated with water-filled barricades, and the closure would be in place from September 1st, 2020 to August 31st, 2022. And I did just want to clarify that the times on the closure application are only for when traffic control will be in place and not allowing them to work through all of those times. And also, the closure is contingent upon the full execution of the memorandum of understanding from the petitioner. We've reviewed their maintenance of traffic plans and worked with them on that, and they have sent notices to all the adjacent property owners. And we recommend granting permission for the closure.
Thank you. Questions from the board on this item?
So what would the hours of work be then?
I can speak to that. I spoke with Adam again. I spoke with the representatives of this development, and they fully understand the local noise ordinance, 6 p.m. for any construction activities.
For that memorandum of understanding, is that going through plan commission?
No, the MOU is actually with you folks. That's what we sign off on, and it just outlines the terms of the closure, what's happening there. They did enter into a separate MOU with the Parks and Recreation Department about the sidewalk and the bond that is part of the gateway projects and things like that. That's a separate issue. Our MOU is about them maintaining, MUTCD compliant closures.
Okay. Beth, did you have a question?
Yes, I just wanted to know if the signage will go up maybe a week ahead of time so that travelers are aware that this is going to be happening, because it's a fairly large lane closure. How early will they put the signage up and the barricades?
I'm not exactly sure. I can mention that to them. I hesitate to put signs up without the barricades in place and I'm actually working.
Okay, so you're working on that now to see how soon that'll go up.
We can see about that. Paul, is this an actual lane closure too? I thought it was just the sidewalk and the bike lane. It's not an actual full road lane closure, right?
Right. It's just the sidewalk and bike lane.
Yes.
And then they might need to narrow the lanes down a little bit, but it'll still provide the 2 through lanes like it does now.
Okay, great. Thank
you. All right. Thank you. I wasn't clear on that. Thank you.
Yep.
And I took a look at the aerial view of this stretch, and it looks like what I perceive to be happening is that basically we're tapering off the bike lane a little earlier than it would naturally taper off, because it it goes away as you head into the bypass. So basically we're moving that taper off and bringing the bikes over into the regular traffic lanes a little bit earlier. And then there is a multi-use path in the Miller Showers Park on the other side up to that crosswalk. Is that correct? So basically you have a bike and a pedestrian pathway on the other side of Walnut Street, on the western side, if you will, of Walnut Street until you get to the crosswalk, at which point that drops off. So if as a pedestrian, I'm just thinking through what that walkway looks like as a pedestrian if you're heading along Walnut Street. Where are you walking when you get into the construction zone from that crosswalk? Does that make sense?
Well, is a pedestrian on the east side or west side? If they're on the east side where the construction site is,
yes,
they will cross on the crosswalk across Walnut. And then going where the side path is on the west side.
And then they'll pick up a sidewalk there over that side all the way through to the bypass?
It won't go that far. It will join just south of the entrance to Walnut Knolls Apartments.
Okay.
That'll be the newly constructed one is what you're referencing, right?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, but currently, like before that's put in place, they'll have to cut west. And then if they were trying to get north, they'd have to either go up Old State Road 37 probably.
Well, the sidewalk will be constructed before they can close down the other sidewalk.
Okay. Cool.
Okay.
Yeah, that sidewalk is part of their maintenance of traffic throughout the pedestrian.
Okay. Got it.
So
this is Mitch. I'm with the developer. I guess can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. It's a little muffled, but we can hear you.
Okay, sorry. Just to explain what's going on. So the sidewalk in front of the site will be going away, but before that goes away, we've agreed with the Parks Department on putting a new sidewalk in Miller Showers Park so that there's no pedestrian traffic. They can basically cut across the crosswalk and go north on the new sidewalk. And then right at the Walnut Knolls apartment, I think that's a private street right there, there's another crosswalk. And at that point, they can cross back over onto the other side of Walnut and pick up the existing sidewalk.
Okay, that makes sense. So the construction of that new sidewalk will happen before the sidewalk closure on the eastern side of Walnut.
Yes.
Okay. Are there other questions from the board?
No, thanks for clarifying that though.
Is there any public comment on this item?
I don't see any in the chat function, Kyla.
All right, is there a motion from the board?
I move approval of the use of right-of-way at 1800 North Walnut by Bloomington, Indiana Properties 1 LLC, also known as Collegiate Development Group, until August 2022.
Second.
Just to clarify the motion, that would be August 31st, 2022.
Thank you.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Thanks.
Thanks. Next, we have Resolution 2020-42, approve right-of-way encroachment agreement for 1003 East Hunter Avenue.
Hi, this is Sarah Gomez with the Planning and Transportation Department. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So Howard Fick and Catherine Phillips, owners of the property located at 1003 East Hunter Avenue, are requesting approval for an existing deck encroachment and proposed accessible ramp encroachment. The owners have a reserved parking space approved by the parking enforcement personnel adjacent to their home since 2013. The parking space is located on Faculty Avenue. The proposed accessible ramp would be installed in order to make their route to that parking space accessible. The request for encroachment includes one 39-foot, 5-inch long wooden accessible ramp with landings and 27 feet of concrete sidewalk ending at the concrete accessible ramp adjacent to the parking space. All encroachments are or will be located along the west side of the property adjacent to Faculty Avenue, where there are currently no sidewalks. Planning staff has approved the CZC, Monroe County Building Department has approved the building permit, and hand staff has approved the COA. All approvals are in the packet, and staff recommends approval of the encroachment agreement. And I believe Lucas Brown is here as their representative.
Thank you. Are there questions from the board on this item?
I have no questions.
All right, any public comment on this item? Seeing none, is there a motion from the board on this item?
I move that we approve Resolution 2020-42, approve right-of-way encroachment agreement for 1003 East Hunter Avenue.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Just want to thank you all for your work. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Resolution 2020-39, approve mobile vendor in public right-of-way, and this is for Unomas Taco Truck, LLC.
Good evening, board. Adam Wason here, Public Works Director on behalf of Marnina. I don't see her on the meeting tonight. This is for a new taco truck, Unomas. They've gone through all the application procedures, and since it's a new one, we do ask the board to take official action through the regular agenda, but we recommend approval.
Thank you. Questions from the board on this item?
This is for a year approval.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Any public comment on this item?
I don't see any, no.
All right, seeing none, is there a motion from the board?
I move that we approve Resolution 2020-39, approval of mobile vendor in public right-of-way for Unomas Taco Truck, LLC.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Next is approve seated scooter operating agreement with VO Ride.
Thank you, board members. This is Michael Rooker, City Attorney. As the board probably knows, because the board is the licensing entity, the city currently has 3 scooter companies that are licensed to operate shared use scooter businesses in the city of Bloomington. That's Bird, Lime, and VO Ride. I'm here tonight because one of those companies, VO Ride, requested permission to deploy a model of seated scooter called a Cosmo within the city's right-of-way. Because seated scooters do not meet the city's definition of motorized scooter, they cannot be licensed using the process that's used for traditional stand-up scooters. So therefore, we have the present seated scooter operating agreement before the board for consideration so that these devices can be deployed legally within the city's right-of-way. Just some a quick rundown of what's in the agreement. The seated scooter operating agreement authorizes VO-Ride to deploy merely a trial quantity of 25 seated scooters. These 25 scooters are authorized to be deployed for a trial period of 8 weeks just, and that trial period may be renewed by city staff provided that the seated scooters do not create issues within the community during the first 8 weeks or subsequently. VO-Ride seated scooters will be subject to the same rules as traditional stand-up scooters with regard to parking and use. So those rules should be familiar to the board. Those were codified by the city council. And so we respectfully request that the board approve this agreement for a trial of seated scooters, of 25 seated scooters, excuse me, from VO-Ride. If you have questions tonight, with me are Alex Crowley, the city's Director of Economic and Sustainable Development. He may want to make some comments after this. And also, I believe Ben Thomas is here, who is a representative from VO-Ride. Alex, can you confirm that?
Ben Thomas is here. Alex is, I think, he's switching over to his phone so he can get to athletic event for a child. So I think it's me and you.
I don't know if you can hear me. Adam, I'm here.
Oh, there you are. Hi, Alex.
We can hear you, Alex.
Yeah, so I just wanted to, thanks, Mike did a great job summarizing this. The only thing I would add is, number one, and Ben can get into some of the details, but they have launched this scooter in Atlanta already. So there's some preliminary learning about how this integrates with other scooter fleets. And so we're eager to learn a little bit more about that. But we are containing the initial launch so that we could see how this plays out in the community. And I should also say that VO-Ride has a slightly different and unique approach to how it manages its fleet, that other scooter companies typically will remove their scooters and then return them, which means that mostly they're keeping an eye on their scooters at the beginning, and then at the end of the day, they remove them to charge them at night. VO-Ride has a model both for its stand-up and its sit-down scooter that it replaces batteries while leaving the device in place, which means that their operating model has more of a kind of hands-on, eyes-on-the-street approach, which gives us a greater sense of comfort that any issues related to parking of these new devices can be and will be addressed quickly. And I can let Ben talk about that as well. But that's really the reason for our confidence in launching them, but also our limitation on the size of the initial fleet. Ben, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
I don't know if you want to add anything.
Yeah, you did a great job. Thank you, board, for allowing us to present this to you. Yeah, we are really excited for the opportunity to possibly bring the Cosmo there to Bloomington. I've sent to Alex, we also have a safety. Our desire for launching these includes also a demo period whenever we would bring these into the city to make sure we have demo events where we will be passing out helmets as well as providing users an opportunity to ride and test ride the vehicles before we actually deploy them out and to be available for rent. As well as passing out flyers with information, including pricing, how to park them, and also proper turn signal, hand signals, things of that nature. But as Alex mentioned, our operational model is 24/7. We have a local manager there who operates and runs our local team there, where we are constantly having techs on the clock 24/7. So if any issues do arise with parking or vehicles need to be removed and rebalanced to different locations throughout the city, we will have team members who can respond within 30 minutes to grab that vehicle and remove it.
Thank you. Questions from the board on this item?
I'm just wondering about the helmets and how will the rider access the helmets as they're renting the scooter?
Yes, so we plan here in the next, obviously students are moving in this week, but we plan to do a heavy push here in the next 2 or 3 weeks with tabling events on and off campus. We have about 250 helmets to pass out. And so there won't be helmets necessarily available as people are renting them throughout the day, but we'll be using our demo events and tabling events primarily to be handing out a vast majority of helmets to make sure that we're supplying them as well. And if need be, we also allow if people do call in to our customer service line, they can order helmets and we can have those shipped into market and then handed out specifically to those users.
Okay, so you're planning to launch this as soon as it's approved? They'll be in town soon?
That's correct. Upon approval, we will be shipping these into town. But then, as I mentioned, we will be setting up demonstrations before we physically put these out in the street for rent.
Okay, thank you.
And this agreement is an 8-week agreement, is that correct?
It is an 8-week trial period that may be renewed up to 5 times by city staff, provided that our experience with the 25 scooters is not negative. So that would mean a total possible period of 48 weeks before the scooters would have to be authorized for deployment again by this board.
And what is the profile of this like in comparison maybe to either a standing scooter and potentially like a bicycle? Like is this, do riders sit about as high as they do riding a bicycle? Are they lower? Are they higher? I don't know. Like what's the difference in how they sit when they're riding in the right of way?
I'd defer to Ben on that question.
Sure. Yes, the vehicle itself is about 5 feet long. It's about 3 feet high. So the seat comes about 3 feet off the ground. So it is a little bit lower in the sense of overall center of gravity compared to our e-bikes that we have in other markets that sit a little bit higher, about 4 feet high. And obviously that has an adjustable seat. The Cosmo that we would be bringing to Bloomington, the seat is stationary, so it doesn't move up and down, but is about 3 feet off the ground.
Thanks.
I also wonder about the top speed. What is the top speed for these? And there's a governor on them.
Yeah, the top speed is 15 miles per hour. They go the same speed as our standing scooters.
Your other ones. Okay, thank you.
And just to jump in, that is a requirement of the agreement. And just as I mentioned quickly, that mirrors the requirements in the city code for stand-up scooters. 15 miles per hour is the max top speed that they have to be governed at on a flat surface.
All right, that's good. Thank you.
Other questions?
This is a question. Yeah, I do have a question, not related to the scooters. But did they bring bicycles in? Wasn't VO Ride to also provide bicycles for the city? Wasn't that part of the agreement, the initial agreement?
Mike, I can answer that if you. Mike, I can answer that if you like.
That sounds good, Alex. Go ahead.
So when we set up the ordinance and the for the stand-up scooters, we provided the option for companies to reduce their per ride charges if they were to bring e-bikes as part of their package. So if they're only offering stand-up scooters, that is 15 cents per ride that is paid out to the city. If they were to bring e-bike as an option as part of the ordinance, that would be reduced to 10 cents. But we made the judgment because this is not e-bike that this would not apply. This sit-down scooter does not apply to that reduction. So it is optional. It was not required at the time of the ordinance.
Optional. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions from the board?
No.
Any public comment on this item?
I do not see any.
Okay. Seeing none, is there a motion from the board?
I move that we approve the seated scooter operating agreement with VO Ride.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next, we have staff reports and other business.
Good evening, Adam Wason, Public Works Director again. Just real brief, we got the board up to speed yesterday. We'll be doing a pretty big purchase down at the animal shelter for an incinerator replacement project. That'll be taking place over the next couple of weeks. Outside of that, just want to remind folks of, we've got students returning and, the city as a whole is a little nervous about all this, but just reminding folks to practice all the physical distancing they need, wear a mask when they're supposed to. When physical distancing isn't possible, and go through the next few weeks with some grace and patience. Do everything you can to stay safe out there. We're sanitation crews are really, really busy right now with all the move-in traffic and the amount of stuff being left at the curb. And so just public works staff is going to be staying busy here, but hope everybody stays safe and well, and we'll all get through this together. So have a great evening on.
Thank you. Next up is approval of claims. Do we have questions on the claims?
No questions.
It wasn't so much a question as just I wanted to make note of it. There were two Aunt Bertha charges for the social services system. And it may be that it's split between accounts, but they weren't even splits. So I wasn't sure. One was on page 5 under CFRD, and then the other one was page 13 under the Safe and Civil department. So related departments.
That's probably just a fund, how they were being funded, the purse being funded from 2 separate funds.
Cool. I didn't have any other questions on claims.
All right.
If there aren't any other claims questions, is there a motion on claims?
I move that we approve claims $9,613,274.26.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. And if there's nothing else this evening, then I will call for adjournment.